Alright, today we are talking about the Sprover, or Spro-over, or Espresso pour-over. Not to be confused with making a pour-over using your espresso machine. That is a completely separate topic which we will address in the near future. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about the Sprover, what are the parameters, some guidelines, how do you make one, and then I'll compare the Sprover to something like an Americano and pour-over. Super quick video because this is such a fun profile and it needs to be talked about. I'm going to tell you this, the Sprover is going to depend on what type of machine you have. So the Sprover, because it is a 1:12 fast flowing ratio long drink that you pulse super fast, you want to really make sure you have a machine that can do it. So if you have a entry-level single boiler machine, you're not really going to be able to do this profile because you will literally run out of steam. The second thing too is if you use a lever machine, some of these lever machines are not going to have the yields to do such a long ratio drink. So this is really more meant for people who have flow profiling E61 machines, Breville dual boilers, decents, all of that. So anyway, let me now tell you about what the Sprover profile is. So it is a 1:12 fast flowing ratio drink. Basically, we're making filter style coffee here using our espresso machine. So you're going to get incredible amounts of clarity. You're actually going to get a drink, like an actual drink that you can sip on. And it happens super, super fast. Here are now some parameters of the Sprover profile. So 1:12, really coarse grind size. Use something about like AeroPress V60-ish, that territory. Then it happens in 40 to 60 seconds. And you're using a super fast flow rate, about 4.5 mils per second. Play around with the flow rates depending on what grinder and machine you have. And then finally, you want to make sure your pressure throughout the Sprover is under 1.5 bars, maybe even 1 bars.
So let me pull the Sprover. Be really careful with this profile. You might end up running a too high temperature. Drop your temperature a little, like maybe 90 Celsius or 198 Fahrenheit, you know, somewhere in that 90, 92 Celsius range. You could even go lower depending on what roast level of beans you're using. Play around with your flow rates, because the biggest issue with the Sprover is you're using a coarse grind size, you're using such a fast flow rate that you run the risk of over extracting. So even if you're using light roast, you might extract a ton, but it might not taste very good. So you just want to be careful of that. Another thing is also, well, the grinders, right? So if you have a fast flowing burst set like the SSP multi-purpose that I have in this ode here, you're going to want to be careful, maybe adjust the flow rate, adjust the ratio that you pull at. But honestly, Sprover works great for grinders like this. This is the Titan Rocky. It's got a okay-ish burst in here. One of the biggest issues with these slower flowing grinders is extracting clarity out of here. But using this Sprover, we're going to be able to do that because we're going to basically be running a lot of water through these coarser grinds. We're going to be pulling a ton of good stuff out of here, and it works perfectly for the Sprover. So I'm just grinding 18 grams. I'm using a coarser grind. Again, I'm using something probably in between an AeroPress and a V60, somewhere in that range. And because you're using a coarser grind, what ends up happening is, well, the grounds in your portafilter take up more space. So this is why with certain Sprover, you'll see there's recommendation everywhere, is to actually just down dose a little. So luckily with prep on the Sprover, I don't really even think you need to tamp, to be completely honest, but I just still do the standard espresso puck prep, then I give this a tamp. But as you can see, look at how coarse those grinds are. It takes up significant more amount of space in my basket. So you can definitely drop your dose a little for that 1:12 or whatever ratio you want to pull. Just keep that in mind because your machine might not have as much headspace, for example. So anyway, the Sprover profile that I've used is basically similar to something like the Rayo Allongé. Basically just runs at 4.5 mils per second, and I pull 1:12. And I'm just running 92 Celsius for these beans. So here we go. Visually speaking, this shot may not look so good when it extracts. It might actually look ugly, but trust me, try the coffee out. That's really what matters here. It's not going to be that beautiful Instagram aesthetic. It's just going to be fast. We're just getting our liquids through, and it's going to be fast. We're flowing at 4.5 mils per second. Our pressure is rising to about 1 bar, staying in that almost 1 bar range. And we're just getting a cup of nice filter style coffee out of our espresso machine. As you see, 4.5 mils per second, keeping that flow constant, going through those coarser grinds. We're just extracting a ton out right now. And we're reaching the end of our shot. I would aim for, 40 to, I think even 60-ish seconds is all right. This is going to be about a 60-ish second pull. There we go. So this actually took exactly 1 minute to pull. And here's the Sprover. So as you can see that there is a ring of actual, bubbles and quote unquote texture or crema. Another thing too is you can see the transition between the light and dark in here. So there is indeed some amount of body in this type of drink. Play around with your temperatures. Maybe don't use a clear glass like I did. But as you can see, there is definitely some amount of texture that stays around, and that's probably because we're just using such a high flow rate and extracting a ton out. You can see the oils on the top. It's very, very pour-over-esque. It's, it's espresso machine pour-over. What's really nice about these brews is that they are, I find the strength to be a little bit stronger than pour-overs. We're using a tighter ratio than more, I guess, standard 1:15 pour-overs, but it smells awesome. And once this cools down, this is going to taste amazing. So that's the really cool thing with the Sprover is that, well, this is an actual drink that I can sip on. And yeah, that is how you do a Sprover. Really great drink to extract a lot out of lighter roasts. Very not really puck prep dependent, very just straightforward.
Okay, so that was how you pull a Sprover. As you saw, because it was a coarser grind size, it took more space in the basket, and it didn't look so pretty, right? It's not a beautifully looking shot, but at the end of the day, you get a drink. And it is a filter-style drink here. So we really want to use Sprovers for something like light roast coffee. Coffees that are actually kind of hard to extract will be perfect for the Sprover, and the simple reason why, at least when we find out with light roast coffees, is there are two kind of methods of extracting light roast coffees. High temp, fine grind size, you do some crazy pre-infusion stuff, really make sure the grounds are saturated and you pull something beautiful. The second option is to go the complete opposite way. Just grind coarse, fast flow rate, you're going to extract a ton out of there. And that is what the Sprover is, and it is perfect for our light roast coffees. Now let me talk about Sprover versus Americano, Sprover sort of compared to pour-overs, and then I will talk about really why I like the Sprover so much, and that really relates to the relation between the Sprover and pour-over. With an Americano, you have this intense espresso that you've pulled. It's going to be beautiful, right? You then will mix it with your water. What basically happens there is this espresso that has intensity, that has texture, that has body, that gets mixed in with your water and it gets distributed throughout the drink. So I know if you keep the crema and you drink your Americanos, you'll kind of get that bitter CO2 crema aftertaste. I actually really like that. You're not going to find that in the Sprover, but if you do not keep the crema and someone that likes like long blacks or something, you spend the time to actually remove the crema, what ends up happening is the intensity is spread out throughout the drink. Feeling of intensity when you first drink these two drinks is a little bit different. The textures, because of the crema that you've built up and the body of the espresso gets kind of spread out throughout the water when you dilute the Americano, tastes a little bit different than the Sprover. So the mouth feels a little bit different between the two drinks. It's just different. I don't know which one you want me to say is better here. They're both fun drinks to make. Okay, now this is the part of the video where I really wanted to show you guys pour-overs, doing the decent pour-over versus the Sprover. The issue with this comparison is that pour-overs are very dripper dependent. You can adjust the pouring technique, you can adjust what dripper you use. Those will really influence the nuances in the pour-over. Sprover, you can't really do that. You can try playing around with the flow rates here and there, but I don't really think it influences the overall drink so much. Whereas a pour-over, the technique really will influence, and dripper, of course, will really influence the end result in the cup. Now, that doesn't mean the Sprover is a bad drink, because the Sprover is actually a great gateway into filter coffee, into pour-overs. It'll let you know, I know a lot of you guys invest money into your espresso setup, and you're curious about pour-overs. If you like what the Sprover tastes like, you are going to like pour-overs. You're getting the similar style of drink, an actual drink, but you're getting that nice clarity. The difference is that obviously the pour-over has more flexibility, depends on what dripper you're using. There's a whole entire thing there. But generally speaking, the overall styles of coffee are similar. Obviously, the Sprover has the advantage of you do not need to buy a dripper, you don't need to buy filters, you don't need to buy a kettle, and it's a pretty good gateway. Just like experiment, just like see if you like that style of coffee, and if you do, maybe pour-overs are for you. That's it. That's the Sprover. Super quick video. I love this drink because, well, you're actually getting a drink, but the second thing too is it's very satisfying for me to pull. You're getting such a large drink out of your espresso machine. It might not be as pretty as those 1 to 2s or 1 to 3s, but you get so much clarity and it is such a tasty drink. Just keep in mind of over-extracting, follow those guidelines, try to keep things in the right place, and you'll get a really great drink and a fun drink to make. I love the Sprover. If you have any questions regarding this profile or other drinks that I've shown you before, let me know, and feel free to subscribe, follow me on Instagram, all of that good stuff, and I will see you in the next one.